The Paul Leslie Interviews.
You're plugged into the Paul Leslie Hour, your source for interviews on the arts, culture, and entertainment. Our guest, Brenna Whitaker, was introduced to us through past guest James Tormé. She's a singer. I would kind of describe her as a mix of jazz, a little soul, a little blues. Thanks for spending time with us.
Thank you for having me. What a treat.
Oh, it's an honor, believe me. So you're a mother now.
I am. It's pretty wild. It's something I've always wanted to do. And, with the gigging and career and late nights, and it never really, I just had to do it. So it's time for that magical moment.
So what's it like being a mother and an entertainer?
Well, you have to reorganize everything, but I'm fortunate that my partner is able to tour with me. So it's kind of like a team effort. You have to have like a teammate and a lot of help. I'm really close with my family. My band all is starting to have kids, so we're kind of a kid-friendly entourage. So it's fun.
Let's go back a little bit. You are from Kansas City, correct?
I am from Kansas City, Missouri, is where I'm born and raised, and I'm actually here working on my second album right now. And yeah, just sort of raising a kid in LA got a little weird, so we're just taking it easy in the Midwest right now.
What about LA makes it weird to be raising a kid?
Well, it's not... And any kid I have is going to naturally be weird. So, but I just think the traffic and the cost of living, I'd rather put the time and the money into the family rather than the hustle, if you will. Yeah, my whole band, everybody tours anyway. So everybody's on the road at different times. So it kind of made sense just to take a step back while I just had the baby's 25 days old today.
Oh, wow.
So, and he's a little boy. Yeah, so LA's a hard place, to live in general, but as a musician, we're all kind of vagabonds anyway, so it doesn't really matter where you live, really. I don't think in 2017, because everything is internet and touring.
Are you singing to your little boy?
I just was, yes, on the front porch. I haven't as much as I thought I would, but I have to kind of be like, hey, this is your job now.
Well, he's going to grow up hearing you sing directly to him. So tell us, what about the music you grew up listening to? What was it that you liked the most?
Well, I've always been heavily inspired by comedic blues, people like Pearl Bailey and Ruth Brown, kind of that had a little attitude. So, but then I love the lush, standard ballads that make you cry and think. So people like Nancy Wilson, who are almost like method actors that happen to be incredible vocalists. I know James from his dad, and it's so cool living in LA, running into people that, that's the joy of living in LA, is you run into some of your heroes and their siblings and their family, and you get to kind of hear some more stories. But Peggy Lee's huge for me, Cab Calloway. Oleta Adams is one of my favorites these days. Just very serious singers I've always been attracted to, even as a 11-year-old girl.
Probably a very difficult question.
Yeah,
it is. Well, I was going to ask you, if there was one song that you could pick to represent what it is that you do, if you had a way you could sing to the whole world, but you had to pick one number, which one would you pick and why?
Well, being from Kansas, I've relied heavily on my ruby slippers and everything involving the song Somewhere Over the Rainbow. So that's kind of the one, even if I'm in, Japan or Germany, and they don't speak the language, but everyone knows that song, and it sort of has this message in it of hope. So probably that one. If I had, if there was one song all over the world that I could give a universal message of peace and love and we're all the same, probably Somewhere Over the Rainbow.
I wanted to talk a little bit about David Foster.
Yes.
How did he come to discover your music?
Well, I have a reputation in Hollywood for kind of putting together bands and nights in places where you wouldn't expect them. But I had a residency for 3 years in Hollywood at the W Hotel, and it was every Sunday night. And we sort of transformed the lobby into like a James Bond, My Little Big Band, and everybody would sit in. We'd have 8 horn players and a lot of celebrities. And that's how David kind of heard of me, through me doing the LA Shuffle. And just, what do they say? You create your own luck. So I just worked really hard, and fortunately, the right people. Michael Bublé is a friend of mine, and so is Josh Groban. And they've been very supportive. So naturally, it was sort of just, I manifested David Foster. Yeah.
What is he like?
He is like working with, kind of like, I would maybe describe it as working with a director, if you're making a movie. And he, goes by feelings, and he's incredible. I mean, he's a very cinematic composer and a wonderful person. He's very close with his family, and he's wild. He's I guess you could call him a genius. He's incredible. He's a wonderful friend of mine. I'm really fortunate I got to work with him.
You've recorded at Capitol Studios. I imagine you've recorded at other studios as well. What is the experience like to go into a studio and put something down? A permanent recording.
Well, that is one of the perks of living in Los Angeles, is sort of the history. I recorded at Jim Henson's studio and Capitol numerous times throughout the past couple years. But it's, to walk in and Frank Sinatra's microphone, they have, a 47 that is famous. And the pictures and the smell of the coffee, and it smells like a green room, and it's absolutely a dream to be in those rooms. But at Jim Henson, I was singing one of Kermit the Frog's song on my album, It's Not That Easy Being Green, which I love the message in that song. But it was so cool to record there and then see Kermit, and the whole Jim Henson enterprise kind of supporting that message as well. It's unbelievable.
Do you think that these more classic styles of music are going to survive in our modern age?
Well, I really hope so. It's different in Europe and in Asia. They seem to really support it there. I would say probably more than even in America. So as long as I'm alive, I'm going to cherish the messages and the composers of that time. And kind of, with all the technology and the new stuff, I think it's refreshing for people to kind of step backwards into time. And I don't really see that going out of style. I actually find that my generation, I'm 35 years old, I'm finding that people really do want to kind of step back a little bit from all of the, information overload. Sometimes I think the simplicity of even something like raising a kid, I feel like my friends and peers are all wanting to go kind of back in time a little bit. So that's where I'm interpreting music, as I like to celebrate going back in time.
You've had a number of very famous people who've joined you on stage. John Mayer, for example, Stevie Wonder. Tell me, is it intimidating to share a stage with people like that?
It is, but I understand just from time and experience the struggle that it takes to get not to, Stevie Wonder level, but, he's been working since he was, I think his first album, he was 12 or 13. And same with John Mayer. He's been working since he was a teenager. And I started in the theater at 11. So I kind of understand the ups and downs of it, but it was absolutely like I describe it a lot like being in a UFO, like you've been abducted by aliens. And it's just very out of body. But then, especially when they sing and share their instrument with your audience, with you on stage, it's sort of like this, you can't help but give them what you've gotten from their presence. And Stevie Wonder, I don't know anyone who hasn't been touched by Stevie Wonder. So it was sort of like, I have to show you, Stevie, how much I appreciate. And the first time I met him, he got on stage and did 5 songs with my band. And I knew he was going to maybe come, so I planned this song called I Never Dreamed You'd Leave in Summer. And it was one of the more obscure ones that he's ever done. And his ex-wife actually wrote it. And she died of cancer. And so we got to sit and have this intimate conversation about her, which was really cool. And John Mayer, to me, is just, absolutely, he's developed this amazing career where he's like the Eric Clapton for my generation. And I admire that so much because it takes a lot of strength to get through that hump of pop music and what am I? And I'm a jazz nerd, but, I got to sell albums and I'm also handsome and I'm so all of those kind of torturous things that could happen to you as a musician, just to kind of like clear the slate and just be a musician. I admire that so much of John Mayer. So I was a little bit kind of starstruck majorly with John Mayer. My facial expression, some people got some pictures and it says it all. But
well, who would you like to perform with that you haven't yet?
I'm living in Kansas City right now, and there's actually a great music community here. And it's a bunch of guys and women, but they choose to work every night rather than struggle in a city like Los Angeles, where you can have a great life here in Kansas City and still be a seasoned jazz musician. But there's a woman named Alita Adams, and she lives in Kansas City, and she has a version of this song, Everything Must Change. I would love to work with her one day or do something with her.
I was hoping you could tell us a little bit about this album that you mentioned earlier in the interview.
Well, it's actually based on the song. The album will be titled Everything Must Change. And there's every song that, in the past 5 years of kind of being a career girl and then becoming a mother and deciding to step away from Los Angeles and just what that kind of all means and getting older, seeing more of the world and trying to be a light, when there's so much darkness in the world. It's all the songs that kind of speak to me in that bubble. So I'm doing like Accentuate the Positive and a couple gospel ones. And so it's a very poignant kind of adult reflection on my favorite standards of that. So it's an extension of the first album I did with David. But it'll just be beautiful. It'll be another great car CD. I still listen to CDs. But
Me too.
yeah, good. People make fun of me. They're like, "You have a CD player even?" I'm like, "Yep."
It's
But yeah.
Well, how do you feel about that change that's taken in music, where everything now is digital, whereas there was a time
Well,
when you'd go to the store to buy an album?
it definitely, I think when there's too much information, then certain things get lost, which is why when you pull out a 12-song CD, you can kind of, I think, focus more attention on an actual, storyline of an album. But I feel like, unfortunately, the days of the storyline of an album are they've dwindled. But I mean, I think music lovers are naturally going to go. They're going to find it regardless, even with vinyl, and vinyls come back. And I'm an 80s baby, so CDs to me naturally, that's how when I was 15 and I fell madly in love with music, they were all CDs. So there's like a nostalgic thing for CDs, definitely, for my earliest memories of music. So, but Apple Music is incredible. You can type in anything you want, but my brain doesn't work that quickly. I'm, I guess, slower and more old-fashioned.
What is something that you used to care about that now you don't care about?
Ooh, that's a good one. Well, living in Los Angeles, I don't care. Well, I've never really cared about the hustle. I know you have to hustle at a certain point in your career to develop a career, but the whole chasing the record label and chasing the record deal, and I think those days, it kind of takes away from the music if you decide to chase the old mold of the music industry. You're better off focusing on the music and your family and your fellow musicians and, of course, your audience. I think it's more about the audience than the actual music industry anymore, which is kind of sad because it used to be exciting. But for me, the goal from the time I was 11 was to get the record deal and to get to sign that contract. And it has been kind of a sad, somber. It was not what I expected at all. But I guess that's in anything. You learn and you grow and you age, hopefully gracefully. But yeah, it's you need the big New Orleans funeral band for the music industry. Unfortunately.
What is a jazz audience like? How would you describe them versus maybe the mainstream pop music fan?
Well, my favorite thing to do is, after a show, kind of meet your audience. And I just love these 20-something, 30-something people, or even people that bring their 6-year-old kids to my show. I love, people really do love this body of music, and the young ones, they actually, I think, are starving for some form of substance musically that isn't in the pop industry. It's just not when you turn on the pop radio, I don't know if you're going to be emotionally touched in your core about anything happening in the world. It's all just sort of a fluffy, saccharine, but everything sounds the same. And I listen to the radio, so I know what's going on, but it's just, you're not going to hear Fleetwood Mac or Led Zeppelin or Pink Floyd. You're not going to be touched in the way you might be touched by even someone like Sheryl Crow or, in pop music. But yeah, I could talk for days about that subject.
What is the biggest compliment you've ever received as a musician?
Well, I'm so lucky. I've had these crazy. Billy D. Williams is a regular of mine from Star Wars, and he got to play Billie Holiday's husband in that movie. What was the title of that? The Lady Sings the Blues? Was it? The Billie Holiday. Anyway,
I think that's it.
Yeah, it was the Billie Holiday story, and Billy D. Williams played her husband, and he told me that my version of God Bless the Child was the best one he's ever heard. And I love that song. Is another one that's going to go on my second album. Just, I feel like the message in that song is so current with what's going on in the world today. But to get compliments like that from people who obviously have researched a character and a story and a person, their history. I love when the actual person, somebody who knows gives you a compliment like that. That's probably the most current one that I can think of. But I really was like, who, me? Thanks. I mean, I'm not very good with compliments, but naturally I'll take it.
For anyone who's listening to this interview, wherever they may be, however old they might be, whoever this person is, very open-ended, what would you say to that person?
I would say, just love your life. I mean, it's so much easier, I think, to be good and to want to be good. But with all especially musically, it's just go for the glory and the good stuff. And not everything is bad in the world. There are so many good people and so many good things happening. But just, staying positive is a big thing. Today, I think people are kind of struggling with everything that's happening.
Yeah. What is the best way to stay positive?
Well, for me personally, I'm a big dog person and I love children. So the more children and dogs I have in my life, and of course food, then, family is so important. I think just keeping to your core and keeping your authentic self alive through dogs and music and babies and family. So I think that's what helps me personally.
Who is Brenna Whitaker?
Whew. It's funny. I read your bio, and Elliot is one of your people. Elliot Mintz.
Yes,
right?
The great Elliot Mintz.
And you even sound like him. He actually is a friend of mine.
Oh.
He lives in the hills in Bel Air, and he's been to my show through one of my closest girlfriends. He's one of their family friends. And he's such a fascinating, I've been in his house with all of his books, but you remind me of him.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, I can't wait. I'm going to tell him to listen to the show. The question, I'm sorry, was who the hell am I?
Those are your words.
Well, in elementary school, I was a chubby kid, and my elementary school crush decided to give me the nickname Big Bad Brenna.
Ooh.
So it's a gift and a curse because I've carried that my whole life, but in sort of the Ruth Brown way or the Pearl Bailey way where, the class too. But anyway, I think I'm just still that chubby 11-year-old girl trying to figure out where I fit in and how I can help in the world. So I just sort of ask for direction from God every day and say, take me where I should go. And somehow I've developed this incredible life where I get to travel and sing my favorite songs, and now I have a baby. So I guess that's who I am. It's just, is that.
Thank you very much for sharing with us.
Thank you.
It's been an honor.
Well, thank you. And thanks, James, for introducing us.
Yes, thank you, James. All right, well, I know you have a baby boy, so you're very busy.
Yes.
Thanks for spending time with us, and
Yes.
I hope we get to connect again.
Yes. I'll send you my new album.
Please do.
Yes. Thanks, Paul.
All right, my pleasure.
Bye, sweetie.